secular. And amongst the secular, there are two groups. There are those who are secular and they decided to be more religious, and there are those who decided to be more secular, for lack of a better word. So doing, I would call it common work like we. And we call it the Ordo Franciscanus Secularis, which is abbreviated as the OFS, and is the third branch of the Franciscan family, formed by Catholic men and women who seek to observe the gospel of Jesus by following the example of Francis of Assisi. Working with St. Denis Ssebugwawo, Lukuli Parish, is our administrative secretary at the parish. And he was entrusted by the pastoral council to steer the Caritas department of the local sub-parish. Nicholas is also passionate with issues of justice, peace, integrity, of creation, to which he is an animator. And this is one of the examples that he has animated. Round of applause for him, please. So inspired by teachings of St. Francis of Assisi on interreligious dialogue, he got a conviction to call for this interfaith conference on climate and environment. So at this moment, ladies and gentlemen, we welcome Mr. Nicholas Kugonza to share with us about the Laudato Si encyclical. You're welcome, and thank you.
Thank you, moderator. As you've been told, I'm going to present about Laudato Si. I don't need to repeat my names. Nicholas goes are my names. Caritas Konge Lukuli coordinator. So we are talking about Laudato Si, and Laudato Si is an encyclical. An encyclical is a letter. It's a formal letter written by the Pope, and usually it concerns teachings about morals and other disciplinary matters. Since it is written by the Pope, it carries authority within the Catholic Church, but it is also addressed to non-Catholics. So it is not only meant for Catholics, it is meant for all people of God. And we find this in the church social teaching. These are teachings of the church that are meant for everyone. They guide us in the day-to-day works of the world. So it is important because it helps us to better understand the application of teachings of the sacred scripture and the Catholic tradition, especially in the light of a particular issue. At this time, the issue is care for our common home, which is Mother Earth. So, as we already heard from the speakers before, this document was inspired by the teachings of Francis of Assisi, because Pope Francis, as we hear the name, those are not his baptismal names. When he assumed office as Pope, he chose the name St. Francis, the name of St. Francis. So it's called Pope Francis, and he's actually the first Pope called Francis. Meaning that he got the conviction and the inspiration to take on his papacy with the St. Francis as an example. So Francis had a lot of reverence for nature, and as some speakers said, the church gave him that title as a patron saint of ecology because of what he did during his lifetime. And as you can see, he's surrounded by the birds and all the nature. We know the stories, those who are Franciscans know the stories of how he interacted with nature. So, with all that information, Pope Francis loved and also got his devotion, and he came up with this document that we are now calling Laudato Si, which only means praise be to God. Praise be to God for Mother Earth. Praise be to God for the sun, the moon, and all the creatures we see. So that's what it's trying to talk about. So Pope Francis's encyclical, Laudato Si, the key message there is about climate change. That climate change is a moral issue for Catholics and all people of goodwill. And we shall see in this book, this is the book Laudato Si. It is not a big book, and it is the letter we are talking about. When we say letter, you may think it is just one page, but it's a booklet, which is even not very expensive. If you go to Pauline's bookshop, it is just 10,000. You can get yourself a copy to understand more what it contains. So, in this, the Pope says that the poor suffer the most despite contributing the least to climate change. That the improper care of the earth has led to severe consequences. The image up there is an image of the recent catastrophe that happened in Kitezi. You can see the graders, we've been seeing the news around. The people who are suffering there, or who were buried alive, are not the ones that were piling that filth there, or that were using those things that made that pile of filth. So they are the poor people who are living on that side of the world, and for us, or some of us who are this side, when we dispose of our waste, it is taken to Kitezi, but we do not suffer the same consequences like those people who are there. So that's what the Pope is trying to say, that the poor suffer the most despite contributing the least to climate change. Improper care of the earth has led to severe consequences, yes, and it's time to take responsibility for our consumer-driven culture. People have talked more about consumerism. I want to go back. So he gives us a proposal that we should start a honest dialogue at every level of socio-economic and political life. In our day-to-day way of living, we should start talking about these issues, and this is one of the events where we are talking about these issues. That we should create an understandable decision-making process, understandable decision-making progress. When we dialogue, it should not end there. When we talk about issues, we should ensure that the decisions that have been made can be put in action. And to remind us that nothing will work if we don't have a formed and responsible conscience. Someone said there that, do we really love the environment, or are we just talking about it? So our conscience should be the first to love nature before we dialogue. So there are some questions which we can consider. We are not going to answer them now, but they can click your mind. What kind of world do we want to live to those who come after us? Our children who are now growing up, what kind of world do we want to live them? What are we called to do in this world? What can we do for the earth, our Mother Earth? So there are 9 themes in this Laudato Si encyclical, and we are going to look at one by one. The first one is the intimate relationship between the poor and the fragility of the planet. We already looked at it in the other slide, that the poor have no other financial activities or resources which can enable them to adapt to climate change or to face natural disasters. And their access to social services and protection is very limited. Many of the poor live in areas affected by phenomena related to warming, dependent on natural reserves like agriculture, fishing, and forestry. There's a rise in the number of migrants fleeing from the growing poverty caused by environmental degradation. Do we have some people in Uganda that have fled from calamities? We even have internally displaced people from Bududa. Yeah. The second theme is the conviction that everything in the world is connected. Our brother talked about interconnectedness from the Baha'i. That the climate is a common good belonging to all and meant for all. There is no way me as a Catholic, I'm going to say I should have a good climate here and the Muslim on the other side have a different one and the one in Baha'i will have a different. We all share the same. We all experience the same. And all of us are linked by unseen bonds and together form a kind of universal family. Remember, we are all created in the same image of God. Nature cannot be regarded as something separate from ourselves or as a mere setting in which we live. We are part of nature, included in it and thus in constant interaction with it. Every violation of solidarity and civic friendship harms the environment. The third theme is a critique of technology's influence on society. Technology is presented as the only way of solving these problems. It proves incapable of seeing the relationship between things. Sometimes okay. When we talk about technology and you are seeing an image of at least phones, most of you have gone beyond those kind of phones, you have smartphones. But as we advance in technology, there is a way we affect the environment. You've heard of radiations? We have radiations amongst us as we use these networks around us, and they affect our well-being. You've heard of, these days, there is what they call vitrofertilization. It's IVF. So you can have a child without having a husband. And I hear there is also a possibility of incubating children. You may not use your ovum, you may not use your sperm. You just go, you get a child already made and it is put in you, or it is also incubated somewhere in another machine. And when the child grows and they remove that kid from the machine, that artificial womb, you get your child. So all those creation questions, and they question God's presence in our midst. So contemporary man has not been trained to use power well. You hear what is happening in Ukraine, you hear what is happening in Palestine and Israel. The advancement in technology has also advanced the way we fight. Those who are strong, they are using bigger weapons, machinery to destroy lives. So because they have power, they are misusing the power. So it's not accompanied by a development in human responsibility, values, and conscience. We do need to slow down and look at reality in a different way. Also to recover the values and the great goals swept away by our unstrained delusions of grandeur. So where you see those numbers, those are quotes that have been got from Laudato Si. If you get this book, just quote those numbers. Those are paragraphs. So the call to seek other ways of understanding the economy and progress. Efforts to promote a sustainable use of natural resources are not a waste of money. It's an investment capable of providing other economic benefits in the medium term. You hear of, that because we are developing, we are going to cut the forest. Our brother was telling us that he's working working on advocacy on this pipeline, East African pipeline. That is a development. We have got oil, but at what expense? You've heard about the stories. People are displaced from where they are because they are going to put a pipeline there. They are going to put rails there. People die because they are fighting for land. They kill each other. They want to sell it at a higher price because there's oil. A lot concerned with development. Even brothers and sisters and parents kill each other because of development. You want to obtain that land title so that you can sell it at a higher price. So it's unsustainable is the behavior of those who constantly consume and destroy. It is not sustainable at all. Others are not yet able to live in a way worthy of their human dignity. So human dignity here is abused. The value given to each creature, in proper proportion, that is another theme. So Pope Francis says, we can't think of different species as potential resources to be exploited. They have value in themselves. Disappearance of thousands of plant and animal species because of reasons related to human activity. Human beings, as an image of God, should not make us overlook the fact that each creature has its own purpose. The entire material universe speaks of God's love, His boundless affection for us. Soil, water, mountains, everything is, as it were, a caress of God. Remember in the story of creation, when God created everything and He saw it was all good. That means that's how He wanted it to be. We should not destroy others because for us we want to be better. The human meaning of ecology. True ecological approach always becomes a social approach. Integrate questions of justice in debates on the environment so as to hear both the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. Strategies for solution demand an integrated approach. Combating poverty, restoring dignity to the underprivileged, while still protecting nature. Learning to accept our body, to care for it, and to respect its fullest meaning is an essential element of any genuine human ecology. Also, valuing one's own body in its femininity or masculinity. We can joyfully accept the specific gifts of another man or woman, the work of God the Creator, and find mutual enrichment. We expected to have some politicians in this conference, but they didn't make it, and they wanted dialogue with them on certain issues, on some of these issues. Because this is a social approach, so our leaders should know and should help us make decisions that are beneficial for all of us. You hear of issues to do with the homosexuality, man to man, woman to woman. How do they call it? Identity change. Someone says, I'm a woman, yet is a man. How do they call that? By gender, transgender. Someone feels he's more a woman than a man. So Such issues are coming up as a way of, it's a lifestyle, a modern lifestyle, they are telling us. And these are things we are copying from abroad, thinking that that is the best lifestyle we can adopt. So Pope Francis is also talking about that, reminding us about the teachings of the scripture. The need for forthright and honest dialogue. Pope Francis says, new dialogue about how we are shaping the future of our planet. We need a conversation that includes everyone, since everything is affected. So the picture there you see is of Parliament, our Parliament here in Uganda, and the picture below is of our President with inter-religious, interfaith leaders at State House. There was a prayer service. But we don't know whether, as they are there, they are really meaning what they are saying. So we need honest and open debate so that particular interests or ideologies will not take away from the common good. The serious responsibility of international and local policies. Pope Francis says there is an urgent need to develop policies so that the emission of carbon dioxide and other highly polluting gases can be drastically reduced. The flags you see there are at the UN, where some of the policies that overall the whole world are made from. So take up these responsibilities and the cost they entail. Politicians will inevitably clash with the mindset of short-term gain and results which dominates present-day economics and politics. So as we are here, there are some laws that are being made in Parliament, we may not be aware. Some laws are made from the UN and they come and affect us. Like when COVID came, it was mandatory for everyone to be vaccinated. So that is an international policy. You can't even go to any country if you don't have a COVID vaccination. Then we hear there is what they call the biosafety bill, something to do with the GMO bill in Parliament. For us, the farmers, I saw in the photo here we have farmers. We have no input in that law. I don't know whether you have ever been consulted. A law to do with the GMO. But they affect us. The throwaway culture and the proposal of a new lifestyle. Pope Francis says the earth, our home, is beginning to look more like an immensely pile of filth. That one we are very familiar because Kitesi is just nearby. When people become self-centered and self-enclosed, their greed increases. The emptier a person's heart is, the more he or she needs things to buy, own, and consume. It becomes almost impossible to accept the limits imposed by reality. In this horizon, a genuine sense of the common good also disappears. These problems Much as we think that all is lost, all is not lost. Human beings, while capable of the worst, are also capable of rising above themselves. Choosing again what is good and making a new start, despite their mental and social conditioning. There is no system. No system can completely suppress our openness to what is good, true and beautiful. Our God-given ability to respond to His grace at work deep in our hearts. So nobody is born a bad person. We are not born bad. We all have some mood. We just change along the way and become bad because of the circumstances that are exposed to us. So He appeals to everyone throughout the world, not forget this dignity which is ours. No one has the right to take it from us. We must not think that these efforts are not going to change the world. We are few here, but we never know what will come out of us. The benefits of that often are beyond us, for they call forth a goodness which, albeit unseen, inevitably tends to spread. Furthermore, such actions can restore our sense of self-esteem. They can enable us to live more fully and feel that life is worthwhile. So I want to close with this prayer, with the peace prayer, the prayer of St. Francis. We are going to read together. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace, where there is hatred, help me so love, where there is evil, pardon, where there is discord, union, where there is doubt, faith, where there is despair, hope, where there is darkness, light, where there is sadness, joy. Grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it's in the giving we receive, it is in the pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life.
Thank you. Thank you very much. A round of applause for Nicholas. I'm not going to, you're going to allow me any questions or comments to him. They will come in the next part, which will be where we shall be sharing best practices because of time. So at this moment, I'm going to invite our brother and sister to come and take us through the interactive session of for climate action. You're most welcome. So we can do this in about 15 minutes.
So good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, so Augustine is my name, and I'll let my colleague Sarah start. She will share with us experiences from Laudato Youth Initiative, and then I'll come just to share a few compliments.
You can start with your PC as he organizes himself. You can start with your PC as he organizes himself.
Hi everyone. Hello. Okay, all right. Thank you so much for this very great and marvelous opportunity granted. My name is Sarah Chirikumwino, and I am the Laudato Youth Initiative Club's president. And these clubs do exist in schools, universities, parishes, and communities in Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania. So I'm so happy to be part of this great event, or what we call the Interfaith Conference on Climate Change. And I'll specifically be talking about, before the interactive sessions, I'll specifically be talking about Laudato Youth Initiative approach to creation. Well, at the heart of the Catholic perspective is the belief that as stewards of creation, we need to acknowledge the fact that creation is a gift from God. The Catholic Church emphasizes the interconnectedness of a living, and it also highlights the importance of living in harmony with nature rather than exploiting it for short-term gains. This to me is a universal concept that truly explains the reason why we must connect as people of goodwill for this common good. Well, picking from the presenters that presented before, we get to realize that we are almost talking about the same things, or if not, we are actually talking about the same things. So we do not have any differences. Maybe the differences will be in faith. The fact that we serve one God, and the same God is the one who created the earth. We see no big differences in this particular issue, because if anything is to happen, then that means all of us are victims of climate change. And we must also acknowledge the fact that we are the biggest contributors. And we also have to know that it is because of our human activities that we are having this changing climate. Aimed at deepening awareness and inspiring action, church documents like the encyclical Laudato Si and Laudate Deum all point towards a collective call to care for creation. The social teaching of the church, a moral teaching document that guides people to discern the choices they make between the good and the bad, and make a judgment in line with the just and the good, focuses on majorly three things: justice, human beings, and nature. Well, we keep talking about climate change every other time, but here we continue driving back to the focal point, which is peace and justice. If we cannot live in peace, if we cannot have love for our neighbors, if we can't care for one another, then we shall keep talking about climate change, because the reason why we're having this particular obstacle is because we do not have love for each other. Amanda here just said that we are talking about climate change. Okay, we all have dreams, we are all participating in action-based activities so that we can be able to do away with the climate change. But do we have love? It is because of lack of love that we have the continuous changing climate. In Genesis chapter 1, verses 26, God gave man protective authority like his own over other creatures. Nevertheless, the dominion granted by the Creator to human beings is not absolute. It is regulated by care for the equality of life of their neighbors, including future generations, which demands a religious respect for the integrity of creation. Pope Francis, in his 2015 encyclical Laudato Si and his recent Laudate Deum, later have signaled a shift for the Catholic Church. He has given a bold voice challenging us to journey together and take concrete actions that lead us to conversation and to take action, even appealing to bodies like like the Conference of Parties and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, to inspire systematic change in our leadership structures and roles. In his encyclical, the Holy Father Pope Francis, when he released this document, it was not only meant for the people of the Catholic faith, but it was sent out to all people of goodwill. We had someone here say that we've not heard of priests talk about planting trees. But I think this is not something that we should be told. I believe that we all have a sole responsibility to caring for Mother Earth. If all children are born and groomed, that you know what, of course they do teach these things in schools, but of course when we go to school, I think we really, Father was talking about, is the curriculum competent? We really put the biology, the chemistry, the physics, the English, but there are a lot of basic values that we are forgetting to teach our children. So to emphasize this, in his recent film documentary and the Laudato, he condemned our irresponsible lifestyles, emphasizing that we need to prioritize carbon. Pope Francis has warned that the world is collapsing due to climate change and may be nearing breaking point. When I think about it, an image of a person holding a pot in their hands comes to my mind as a challenge before us to protect and save the fragile earth that is in our hands. This, to me, validates the need for us all, in our different faiths, to work together and save our common home. It is a treasure that the entire humanity shares. At the very beginning, or in the very beginning, when God was creating the earth, He created the birds, the animals, the vegetation, and everything that was in the world was beautiful. And finally, He created man. And who is man? You and I, who are supposed to be the sole responsible people to take care of His creation, or what we'll call co-creators. But what are we doing? We are the what? Soul destroyers, not so? And sometimes there's something. Sometimes we shall say that we are carrying out particular activities to be able, we're talking about farming, we're talking about everything, but some of these problems have been caused due to bad farming practices that people carry out, destroying the soils, destroying the soil-living organisms, destroying the fish in the waters. And, God gave us this world in its fullness. But to date, is it still in its fullness? We do not still hold it in its fullness. The world has been destroyed, or it's breaking every other time. Just like Pope Francis said that we are nearing breaking point. The recent tragedy that Hillary talked about in South Sudan, people have been clinging on Chitezi. Chitezi is an incident that has happened. They have been pouring rubbish in that place for quite a long time. And at some point, sometimes we hold these conferences to create awareness. And we have been talking about a lot of things, how we're going to do this. And then different presenters here have been saying that we need to reach out to schools. Well, I'll talk about Laudato Youth Initiative. We particularly inspire climate action among the young people, and we use media to promote awareness. Apparently, many young people are using media, but of course, we need to use media in different ways. Are you using media for building a brand? Are you using media to create awareness? What are you using media for? So as Laudato Youth Initiative, we embark on using media to promote the message of breaking the silence, or being a voice of the voiceless for the many poor people who are suffering. When we go back to the Bible or to the teachings of the church, we then find out that saints also talk about nature and how we need to protect it and treasure it. We are profits and gains for each other, and we need to care for the earth, for it to benefit us all and the generations to come. Pope Francis still, in his Laudato Si, Father, says we are not different from the earth, but we are rather connected to it through the air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat. He also emphasizes that our ecological approach today must integrate questions of justice in debates and in debates on the environment so that we hear both the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. And therefore, he invites us to think of the things that connect us to God through caring for his people and creation, regardless of our religions, ages, nationalities, and ethnic groupings. I am glad that we are all here today for this particular cause. The call to all people not given, the call is to all people and not a given group of people or the government, but rather challenges us to examine our role. It is not about blame games, it's about what action we are taking, both as youth leaders, religious institutions, and governments to guide and work with our people while acting as good examples. I think I do what I do for creation because my parents and mentors taught me and are good role models for this. Well, the Laudato Youth Initiative approach to care for creation. We have done a lot of activities. This year, on the 28th of January 2024, we started the 1 million tree drive. And it started way back in my home district. I come from Bujiri. So that is where we started the 1 million tree drive with planting of 30 trees that include indigenous and fruit trees. That is what we concentrate on. Fruit trees, these are for purposes of food security. Someone here just mentioned that while they were young, they used to use banana fibers for making toys and then dolls. When I was also growing up, I knew that mangoes, guavas, you just go to these trees and pick something for yourself. So for us planting these trees, I mean the fruit trees, these are practical solutions to food security. Laudato Youth Initiative also embarks on technology, enhancing technology among the young people. The fact that we exist in schools, science fairs are something that is key for us. We have been to Holy Cross Lakeview and the other schools where we exist, and we have launched creativity and innovation projects that help in rescue missions. For example, students, with the current curriculum, these kids have a lot of knowledge. And if we do not give them the opportunities to explore what they have, imagine a child, today we have solar systems that are being used and they are fixed. Now these guys have movable solar systems. They came up with such a project, a movable solar system. How does it work? It detects where the intensity of the sun is, where the sun's intensity, like the light, is stronger, and it turns. And then it is able to give better light. Now, currently, we have a problem that when it rains, sometimes when it's a rainy season, it is not shining for quite a long time. You find that the solar bulbs, the solar systems are very dim. But imagine if solar companies, or even ourselves, if we got into this and then adopted this particular idea of using the movable solar systems, how would it be? It would be very effective. If only we acknowledge each other, one of us has an obligation and responsibility to care for God's creation, which is entrusted to us to use wisely and protect for our well-being. We shall show respect to the Creator, because I believe none of us created the natural world, but we are given a noble role to protect and utilize for our well-being. It saddens me a lot to see us taking the path of exploiting and using different things that are leading to climate change irresponsibly. My parents taught me a nice formula for respect. Listen and use the freedom we have given you wisely, for the consequences of unwise decisions will ruin your life and your future. I don't know how often I think about it, and how it applies to my understanding of even difficult situations like climate change. We are failing to listen, dear people of God. It is sad that our actions now affect more the poor and the young people. The church challenges us to embrace solidarity. I am happy we are here today on a solidarity mission. We are our brothers and sisters keepers. We are one human family that is bound to come together in all situations, regardless of our racial, ethnic, national, economic, and ideological differences. So we should unite to create a difference in our world, care about the way our decisions affect the majority of young people who are in the future, the poor who did not choose so but need our help and care to have smiles on their faces. Something I will still re-echo. If our grandparents or if our parents did not do something about the environment like some time back, then we would not be, because apparently we are partially enjoying the good weather that we may call the good weather. But imagine at this particular point, 2024, we are also beginning to experience the heat waves. What does this mean? If we do not revamp, if we do not reverse our actions towards this particular obstacle, that means we are not going to bridge the gap between the current generation and the next generation. Laudato Youth Initiative is a non-profit, faith-based organization. We mentor Laudato Si clubs in schools, universities, parishes, and communities. All of us volunteer our gifts at the time for what we do. We believe one act of charity can add value to Mother Earth. That's why adopting simple, manageable solutions has seen us engage in several activities as young people. Our work is inspired by the message in the encyclical Laudato Si, the Catholic social teaching on the environment, and the Millennium Development Goal number 13, a call to action. Forget every word that would describe us, but remember that we unite young people who unite for climate action. The reality is there is no young person without a family, church, institution, and country. That is how we unite the human family, and that's why I'm here with you for the many young people I represent here today. Our clubs exist in both Catholic and non-Catholic schools, and through these clubs, we have been able to conduct numerous charitable activities and are now focused on the 1 million tree planting drive. Through our clubs in the recent 8 months, we have been able to plant over 8,000 indigenous and fruit trees raised by Laudato Youth in their own nursery beds in institutions and churches. A few trees were given to the clubs by government conservation agencies. Our efforts are to enable the youth to use their talents, take action, amplify their voices through writing, and create awareness in communities in a bid to unite people and find practical solutions. We have participated in several gatherings, both physically and virtually, and all have been clear examples of how communities urgently need to shoot their arrows in one direction. In line with devising innovative and scientific solutions to climate change, our youth have come up with very brilliant innovations that are well documented on our social media platforms. Our school clubs conduct periodic Laudato Si festivals that involve a lot of creation care activities that also involve community cleanup campaigns, tree planting, community service activities, interactions with cooperative organizations and the churches. 3 of our clubs participated in nature walk this year, whose purpose was to realize the interconnectedness between nature and humanity. Further still, our high school clubs are very impactful and do other co-curricular activities. For example, we had many of our Laudato youth from Laudato Si clubs in the different schools like Divine Mercy, Holy Cross Lakeview. We had St. Joseph's Hill, Chembogo, Nyakasura School participate in the Uganda National Students Association Debate Nationals. I was a debate club president. So basically in schools, the government stages up these particular debate competitions to get the knowledge young people have about particular problems that the government wants to solve. And then we also had the same schools participate in the Green Schools climate debates that were at Kololo SS. We have run numerous media documentaries and mini educative videos about what is happening to our common home, visualizing the realities of what is happening to our families, communities, and country, poor waste management, flooding, a carbon footprint, inviting people to a journey and conversation action. We also have used the language of the youth and made a series of encyclical Laudato Si and Laudato that are all available on our YouTube channels to help those who may have limited time to read but can even watch or listen to the message while driving, but also resourceful for our youth in clubs. With the theme to hope and act with creation, this season of creation that started on the 1st of September and will be ending on the 4th of October, the feast day of the patron saint of ecology and creation, and that is Saint Francis of Assisi. We kick-started with prayer of our Laudato Club in Gulu at St. Andrew Bazet, Kochigoma Parish. We are pausing to evaluate our carbon footprint, and we hope to reduce it through our actions. In this season of creation, may God give us the grace to renew the face of the earth back to its originality. Keep it up with the Laudato Youth Initiative, knowing that we cannot argue ourselves with climate change on the faith that we have caused ourselves. We are driven by action, in action only. Dear parents, I know the parents in this place. She said she's talking as a mother. I know there are those who are parents to be and there are those who are parents. Anyone can be a parent, by the way. This message goes to parents. It is better to educate your children how to fish than to always bring fish to their table. When you are gone, they will starve and sell all you worked for. So please, teach your children that there is no future without nature. We shall have drinking. Where shall the drinking water come from? Is there a replacement, or are arable lands being suffocated by plastics and paper bags? Uganda is our home. We need to unite and preserve it as a treasure and cultivate love towards protecting our motherland. Charity begins at home, as someone said. For God and my country, Laudato Youth Initiative, United for Climate Action, thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. So, I'm always challenged by the young people in Laudato Youth Initiative, the things that young learners can do in school. So I just want to connect, because we are entirely inspired by the Laudato Si encyclical. So I just want to connect part of the work that we do to the principles that Pope Francis. It's good that Nicholas has taken us through the encyclical. So just 5 principles. The first one is environmental education. When you read chapter 6, the Pope appeals to us to do a lot of environmental education of children in schools. And this is how Laudato Si comes in, Laudato Youth Initiative comes in. So the thing is, I am a strong believer of education. When you educate young people, because for us, the older folk, there is not much you can change about us. The same for corruption. But for the younger ones, if you show them the right thing to do, if you give them the right principles, so that when they are, as they grow and they encounter dilemmas or life challenges, they know the right thing, they can choose the good from the bad. The same speaks to generational solidarity. So the Pope reminds us that we who are inhabitants of the earth today, we have the duty to prepare and leave this earth for the next generation. You can imagine the Earth, the planet that the children of our children are going to inherit. If it's already 45 degrees in some parts of the world today, I don't know what it's going to be then. 60 or 90. You can imagine degrees of 90 Celsius. That's very, very dangerous. Then the Pope also urges us to find very simple, practical ways of changing the culture. Simple examples. Reducing consumption. Today I learned from Hillary, very simple, was it Hillary? I think it was Hillary, who was telling us about the food wasted in the market. So I am somebody in the market and I've brought too much fruits. I love lemons and neem, but I always find them rotting away. So, I mean, why don't you just give them out? And then there are kids on the street who have nothing to eat. And yet there is stuff being thrown away in the market just because I used money, so I cannot give it away to be. So, consumption again, simple practical ways. Look at things like turning off water, turning off your tap when you're not using the water. When you are showering, after probably you have, well, I don't know how people shower, but in some cases, if you first pour water on yourself and then you need to use the sponge and soap and whatever it is, then you come back to the water. So as you are, smearing yourself with soap, is the water in the shower running or is it off? Because remember, when you turn it off, you're saving water, isn't it? The same with the power. For example, I'm seeing these lights, I don't think we need them. I don't know how many buildings in Kampala have lights today. I previously worked in the bank, and for all the years I worked in that bank, the only time the lights are off, 13 floors of the bank, it is only when power goes off. Those few seconds between umeme and the generator. Few seconds. Otherwise the lights will be on. You can't turn them off. How much power do you consume? Because the more power we consume, that means the more the oil at the Nile is running, and the more, and then the more, and the more, and the more. So sometimes it's not the government to do. There are practical things that we can do in our own waste management. We talked about sorting. We talked about waste pits. When I grew up, when I was young, my dad had a habit at home. We would dig a pit and then we throw the organic waste there. And then when it is filled up, you pour a bit of soil or ash, cover it up, dig somewhere else. And then after a number of years, that place became fertile. I don't think we can do so much of today. Not necessarily because there's less land, but just because some of those traditional practical ways were probably not brought down from our parents into us. Now today it is the norm. Yeah, you have to sign up with the home clean, and then they have to get your waste bag and you put all this rubbish in there. So then we have the thorny issue. Nicola said we need a politician here. The plastic bags. We are the only country, ladies and gentlemen, in East Africa. I don't count Congo and South Sudan because they're still visitors. But we are the only country in East Africa. I lived in Kenya for 7 years, and the only kavera you find in Kenya is the one that has been smuggled from Uganda to Kenya. When I look at Kitezi, a plastic bag, polythene, takes 1,000 years to degrade completely. That means what? That means the polythene bag, Kitezi, was opened in 1996. That's when it was commissioned officially. That means the kavera that went there in 1996 is still what? It's still there. So probably the kavera down in the lower layers is the one that we used when that was 96 was I think Museveni's second democratic election. So you can imagine. This is how badly we are doing. We have the law, by the way. We have the law, but it is shelved. Because the thorny bit is implementation. Why? Because probably the big shots are the ones who have the industries. That's not a problem. Because when you remove kavera, that means we are going to have the biodegradable bags. These guys can still, we can give them a leeway, we can do it in a phased approach so that we give them time to adapt to the technology they need to make the biodegradable bags. They will do the same thing, in my opinion. Then we talked about switching off the lights. Now lastly, we can't talk about climate change. So we have to talk about it, but more especially leave it and we breathe it. I'd like to end with just the few challenges the questions that I will leave to us as we finish this conference. When I was in the very beginning, when I was talking, commenting about here, I am the kind of person who likes to look at things from a broader approach. When you look at climate change, and when you read the encyclical by Pope Francis, he brings about some dilemmas that we have to talk about. The first one is survival and environmental conservation. Look at Luigi. In the villages, there's a lot of climate change effect. Guys can no longer do agriculture, and agriculture is the livelihood of probably 70% of rural folk in Uganda. So that means there's a lot of urbanization. Now, when you come to Kampala, you will find the nearest place where you can put what? You can put a small house, isn't it? So that person who is in that situation, they're faced with a dilemma. Do I conserve the swamp, or do I just put up a small house for survival? I have to feed my family, so you're telling me not to cut this tree for firewood? Now, those are the dilemmas we have. Somebody told us about charcoal. The charcoal, it's a very interesting conversation. Yes? Reduce the charcoal. Solid, valid. What's the alternative? In Kenya, I think it was about 2015, they had a serious affirmative action. They brought the price of gas down.